All right, welcome everyone to episode 85 of the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor, and as most of you who tune into this show regularly know, being a guy who's played in rock bands for years, I interview a lot of other musicians and other performers, and just I've met a lot of different people along the way. This particular guest is someone I first met when I was about 12 years old. It was back in 1996. When I was a kid, I was probably about sixth grade at this point. I went to this private Catholic school in Wilmington, Delaware. It was called St. Edmund's Academy, and it's funny because like when I was little, I used to think like being an actor would be pretty cool, and of course in my mind I was thinking like I want to play like Batman or somebody one day. So my parents thought like, okay, well we'll put him in school plays. That'll sort of scratch that itch. And not that I was much of a musical theater guy. I mean, I liked acting, I liked music, obviously, which is what I do now. But it's like, they kind of threw me into that world a little bit. And so when I was younger, I would do school plays and that sort of thing. Well, anyways, when I was at St. Edmund's in sixth grade, there was a bunch of us who our music teacher, shout out to Miss DeHart, Miss Deborah DeHart. She was our teacher at the time. She I don't know how she found out about this, but apparently there was a touring production of the Andrew Lloyd Weber musical called Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I think it was a pretty popular musical back in the day. I think like Donny Osmond had made that show famous because I think he was in a production of it at one point. But anyways, there was a touring production of that was coming into Wilmington, Delaware. It was coming through town, and somehow Miss DeHart, I guess she got wind that they were auditioning like local choruses because I guess as part of the show that you would have like a chorus of kids who would like kind of help sing and narrate the story. It was a very like family friendly musical. So she had found out about it, and like I was one of the people in the chorus that was part of this youth chorus that auditioned for it. We ended up getting the gig. And it was a pretty wild thing. I remember as a kid, like thinking like this is pretty crazy. Like, we were there for the entire 2 week run or however long it was at the Playhouse Theatre at the Hotel DuPont in Wilmington. So, which Wilmington, Delaware, it's about like an hour outside of Philly. So it's like, it's not quite Philadelphia, but it's, it's just sort of like the next town over. But we had gotten that, and I look back on that experience to this day and just think like, man, that's crazy, because I don't think like too many like touring Broadway productions do that sort of thing where they'll have like a chorus of like local kids come in for the 2 week run of it. So, even though, as I got older, I kind of got away from the whole musical theater thing, went to sing in rock bands. Of course, I appreciate it a lot more now that I'm older. I realize like, wow, there are a lot of super talented people who are in that world. And but yeah, it was just such an incredible experience, like to see like a production that, up close like that, to get to see what goes on behind the scenes. Certainly people in my family loved it a lot. And so fast forward to about 4 or 5 years ago when my oldest daughter was born. My aunt Maureen, who when she was young, she would sing in dinner theaters and stuff like that. She had held on to the old program, the playbill of the run of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, back in '96, and she got a few other like old like plays, like programs of plays that I had. I had no idea she had held on to it all these years. She gives it to me. She's like, Jack, you need to hang on to this so you could tell your girls when they get older, like, hey, this is what your dad used to do. And so I thought like, man, this is pretty amazing. And so I went through the program, the playbill, and just see some of the actors and kind of Googled a few names, just seeing where they were. And I remember this guy in particular, who's our guest today. I remember him specifically because he was always one of the guys who would do like a lot of acrobatics, a lot of flips and stuff. And of course, all his kids at the time thought that was really cool. And then I did a little Google search about this guy and figured out that he lives in Orlando, which is where I live now. And he's a performer at, he's performed at Disney World, Universal, and like he's still going, which I thought was really, really cool. So I looked him up a while back, and I'd been meaning to have this guy on for a while just to kind of tell my story. And, now, again, I wasn't expecting him to remember me or the town or anything like that, but I just thought it would be really cool to kind of catch up with this guy, see where he's at now, and learn about what he's doing now. So yeah, please welcome to the Phoenix Report, James Berkley.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
I can't complain.
Very cool. So, yeah, one of the things I noticed when I was like just doing a Google search, looking through Facebook, you're still performing, still in great shape, you're still doing your thing. Like that is awesome. What do you remember about being a part of Joseph and being part of that tour? I don't know how many cities you guys did back in the day, back in '96, or what was some of your experiences like back then for that?
Well, I can tell you. So to something you said earlier in the introduction, you were talking about the Donny Osmond version. So the tour that your choir was cast in is the sister tour. So they were happening at the same time.
Oh, really?
So the Donny Osmond tour was playing like LA, all the big cities. And then the tour you were on that I was on was the one that started with Sam Harris. Sam Harris was the original Joseph. Mm-hmm. And the way I got into the show is because Sam ended up dating one of the guys in the show, and who ironically is also from Orlando. I'm not going to say names. Well, I mean, I don't think they care. They're very out. But so his now husband left Disney as a straight man. And so they met, and then love affair happened. So anyway, and that's when his partner left the show, that left an opening in the show for a tumbler. That's how I got cast, because I replaced him directly. I played the role of Dan, and I was the acrobat. I specifically got it because I tumbled, and I will never forget. Back in the day, it was called Johnson Lift Casting. It's now Tara Rubin, who was actually involved. I remember going up to the audition from Orlando, and it was snowing in New York, and I almost got snowed in. And she pulled me aside. She said, you would have gotten this gig whether you came here or not, because we were looking for a tumbler specifically, and there was only 3 because it was midwinter. Everybody's already cast or gone. So we did that. But I do remember the tour very well, and I especially remember the kids choirs, because every city obviously was a different kids choir. And my personality, it's interesting to me, because I like, not to get political, but everything that I did would be considered suspect today. Like, because I love kids. I love lifting kids up, and you guys were all at that impressionable age. You were 11, 12, 13. And I'm like, you know what, let me speak to them, meaning you guys, as colleagues, not kids. Yeah. And that was my thing. So I always did that in every city. And I remember just everyone, you could tell that they were shocked that, even though I still don't consider myself an adult, that there was this adult in the cast talking to them, because in my way of thinking, and a lot of people's, you were cast as well.
Oh yeah, no, I remember you always being very approachable, very talking to the kids, and I think to your point, there was a segment in the show I remember where it's like all the kids, it was like right like the big grand finale, all the kids were out like dancing with, and like sometimes like some of the guys would like put a kid up on their shoulders or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really suspect that I remember.
Well, I mean, what I meant by that was like, they'd be like, why is this old man, spending time? I mean, you guys had your handlers, so you were obviously protected and stuff like that. It was just because I'm still not, but back then I definitely don't take things too seriously. I was silly. I have no problem being silly. I have no problem being goofy. And it was like, you could do that around kids because nobody cared. A lot of people in the cast were I was one of the young ones at the time. I'm considerably older now, but
me too.
Exactly. Well, you were 12 and now you have daughters, so that's what and you're not the only one. There was another person who reached out to me on Facebook from the other cities, and apparently took a picture, and he came to, when I was at the time I was doing Finding Nemo the musical. He came and saw the show, brought a framed picture of me and him in our costumes from the show.
No kidding.
So he was like 12. He was like 6'6", jacked, hairy, like bear of a man. I was like, I don't understand what is happening right now.
Right.
When I saw the picture, I remember exactly. I exactly remember that kid. But then I was like, there's this giant man talking to me, and it was him. So I was like, wow, life went on, and it made it aware to me that a lot of the people in the kids choir, because that's what we called you guys, the kids choir, because you were always local, and that we were so influential, and that we don't think of it because I don't want to say we're all jaded, but it was a gig for us, and but that's kind of why I like spending time with the kids, because it mix things up. That's why I like touring too, because I'm not I'm an undiagnosed ADHD kind of thing. So it's like the more things that change, and I love the cities changing and new people, and we got to meet new dressers and meet new kids, all that stuff. So that was always exciting to me. And so I do remember it very well. The tour was great, and like I said, it was we were the sister tour, so we were touring when Donny Osmond's tour was doing like the big cities and stuff. We were doing the Canadian cities and the big, what they call big small theaters.
Some of the secondary markets, probably.
Exactly. Yeah. So like they were playing, huge theaters, and we were playing the theaters that were big enough to accommodate our set. Right. They had that turntable and all that stuff, but not giant ones. And I think the longest we stayed in any place was Washington D.C. was for 4 weeks. But like the Donny Osmond tour sat in L.A. for 6 months, and it sat in Chicago for like 3 months. So it's like they got to sit in places, which
that makes sense.
I would not have liked. I liked being busy. But yeah, I do remember it, and it was such a fun thing. Like I would totally go back and do it now. I'd obviously be cast in a different role now. Ironically, I still can tumble even at my age. It's not something I recommend myself doing because I don't know how long my body will hold out. But yeah,
right. But that's awesome. I mean that must have been such a crazy experience for a young guy back then to go around city to city, and I guess everyone's staying in hotels, or I don't know where they put you guys up and whatnot. But it must have been a pretty cool way to to make a living as a young guy coming up.
Absolutely. The thing was, because I was young, what was it, 1995? So I was 24, something like that. And I was making a lot of money. Like those tours paid really, really well. Nice. But because my career started so easily, so quickly, I didn't understand what I had. I mean, I appreciated it. I love working and but I didn't understand that I was in the top tier, because back then that was before our union, Actors Equity, has divided the contracts now. So there's so many different types of contracts. There's touring contracts for small theaters, all this. So all the pays are different. Back then it was one pay for what they call a production contract. So here I was 22, 23, or whatever it was, making a lot of money. And I didn't really have life skills yet. I mean, we paid for our hotel out of that. But I didn't understand that if I had invested, like right now we are completely out of debt. I'm completely out of debt because I've invested. But if I had done all that when I was 24, I would not only be out of debt, I'd be pretty well off right now. I'm not struggling at all. My life's great. But I was like, so if anyone out there is under 30 and you're making good money, for us, this is not a plug. I'm not getting any money from him, but we did the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University, and we got ourselves completely out of debt. We just paid our house off and all that stuff. And I'm 54 now. I just turned 54 yesterday, 2 days ago. And so if I had done all of what I just did for the last 5 years when I was 24, my life, I could everything would be paid for. I could travel everywhere I wanted and stuff like that. I don't know how I got into that. I do that. If this is going to happen, you have to keep me roped in. I will definitely go on tangents.
No, that's fine. Hey, we can do that here. It's not a strict interview. But congrats on getting out of debt, by the way. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And by the way, who at 24 really knows a lot about that? I certainly didn't. I barely know about it now.
I know, and I always tell people, I say we don't have kids, but if we had kids, I'm like, high school should teach it. I feel like they should teach it in middle school or junior high, but high school for sure should teach people how this works, because the ones that leave high school and go into college, that's when you get bombarded by credit card companies and everyone's giving you money, but then they don't say what it's going to cost you later. It would be a way to navigate that, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying. But yeah, so back then I was making a lot of money because it was a great tour, and it was fun. It was so much fun. First of all, the show is fun. Like you said, it's family friendly. It's a show I had already done twice before in non-equity summer stock and then a regional theater somewhere. So it was a very, very high budget version of a show that can be produced very cheaply. And there's some people that I've made friends for life on that tour, and other people disappear. That's kind of how the business works. Some people fall out of your life and stuff. But like, who would have known that you would contact me 30 years afterwards, after you're married, have kids? I was like, so to go back to what you said, of course I don't remember exactly who you are because you're a man now, and I would have, if you came with a framed picture, right? I remember that kid.
Yeah.
Because usually there was something about the kids that stood out. You know, you could always tell. I could always tell the ones. There are 2-3 things that I don't know what your audience is for your podcast, but I could always tell 3 things. I could tell the ones that were going to stay in the business. I could tell the ones that were doing it just because they were bored or their parents needed them something to do, and the ones that were on the verge of self-discovery and who they were going to become. And I was like, it was another reason I wanted to do it, because I wanted them to see a person who was comfortable in their own skin, both as a person of mixed race and being gay. They could see that, and I was very happy. And I would love to say, hey, I'm this great, but that wasn't really the thought process behind it. But in hindsight, I'm like, okay, they saw, I don't know if I changed anyone's life. Nobody's ever told me that. But like, there might have been that one kid that's like, what am I going to do? I have all these feelings or whatever. Or, can I do this as a living? I still would tell people, like, if I had kids, if I were your, I'd be like, don't go in the business because it's so stressful, chasing down work. But what parents and other people don't understand is, like, if this is in your blood, it's what you have to do. It's why I'm still doing it at this age, because I'm like, I could have, especially when the pandemic, all my friends who used their degrees, their fallback degrees, I'm like, I don't have one, but even if I did, I don't think I could have done it.
Well, that's cool. I mean, the fact that you're still out there, still making it happen, and still performing is pretty awesome. And I know certainly for me, growing up, like I wasn't sure if I was going to be a musical theater guy, but I knew that I wanted to do something. And when I became a teenager, I started playing bass and started going into just playing into rock bands, which I still do now. It's not what's paying the bills. I ended up going to college, got a regular job, which I still do, but like I still play and do stuff, especially around Orlando. You ought to come and check out a show one of these days.
I might do. It's funny because I listened to your introductory podcast because I just wanted to see what the tone was, and you were talking about like all your influences, like Metallica and Def Leppard and all that stuff. I was like, that couldn't be further from the Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
No.
By the way, I'm glad that you have trouble saying that title as well. So do I. I've done this show so many times, and I still have to slow down and go, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
The title is a mouthful. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I could never say it. If I have to, because I speak fast. I'm from New Jersey, so I speak very fast anyway. And when people ask me, I have to physically slow down and enunciate the words, or else they don't come out. So when you did that, I was like, okay, it's not just me.
Well, I'm glad I could help you feel really sure. Where in Jersey are you from, by the way?
I grew up in the Trenton, Lawrenceville area. So actually, technically Lawrenceville, but if I say Lawrenceville, nobody knows where that is. So I always say there's Trenton, there's Princeton, Lawrenceville smack down between the two. Oh, the way I describe it, if I'm really being cheeky, is I'm like, I had more money than the people in Trenton and not as much money as people in Princeton. So we were like the suburbs, literally. But yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. It's funny some of the different directions, life takes you. And I'm certainly glad that, like, my parents weren't the type to, like, push that stuff on me as far as like being in show business. I mean, when I was a kid, I thought, like, man, that would be great. That'd be great to be on TV, to be famous and all this other stuff. But now as an adult who has kids, like I hear like all kinds of horror stories about like child stars, in Hollywood or wherever they are. And it's just like, wow, kind of glad I didn't go that way. So.
Exactly. I mean, it's really funny because you could tell there's different kinds of child actors. There's the ones that do it because their parents are living their dreams through their kids, the ones who didn't make it, or they're the kids that, just have so much energy and you put it into something. I always said if I had kids, I'd put them in gymnastics and performing, because one, you learn about how your body works and how to protect it, and the other one is learning how to express yourself and get feelings out and stuff. But yeah, it's one of those things where there are different kinds of kids where you could tell they're doing it either for their parents or they're doing it just because they had nothing else to do. They were bored. But the ones that make me sad are the ones that are really, really talented. And I could see, I didn't really see it so much with you guys because your parents weren't really allowed because you had handlers. No, but I see it with the parents are interfering with their kids. Like, the kids are talented. I'm like, if you just leave them alone, they'll be fine. Yeah. I understand you're trying to guide them, but you're trying to, I mean, when I see that, it makes me sad. And then, or the ones that, they're very talented, but, life is cruel, if someone doesn't have a certain look, or if they're, and I'm like, oh, I just hope they're ready for what is this, the rudeness of this business. Like the fact for the last 6 years, like when Finding Nemo the musical closed the first time, which I was in for 12 years, it reopened and I was not asked back. So it's like most of my friends were, and I was not. I was like, part of me was very sad and, took it personally, but I'm like, that's the business. That's how it works.
Yeah.
It took me like a couple weeks to go, you know what, just get over it. You weren't asked back. It's a thing. Move on. And now I'm working at Universal again. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean that sort of thing could be tough to deal with as an adult. I can't imagine a kid going through that,
Yeah, exactly. Because you'll take it personally. They're like, "What did I do? What's wrong with me?" And it was like, "Nothing's wrong with you. It's just a business."
That's cool.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your history as well. You're from Jersey originally, and I'm assuming Joseph wasn't your first major gig. What were some of the roles that you've played over the years that you've really that stick out in your head?
Okay, I can give you the Reader's Digest version, which sounds like I'm bragging, but I have to say it this way so people understand exactly my career is literally backwards. It's so backwards because I graduated high school in 1986, with no clue what I was going to do. I wasn't going to go to college. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. A friend of mine, an older friend, we went and saw a show at the Bucks County Playhouse, which is in New Hope, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You know what that is? That was okay. So we went and saw a show, and I casually mentioned to him. I was like, "Oh, I could do that." And without me knowing, he put my name and number at the box office, said if there's any audition. So they contacted me auditioning for The King and I. I guess was I the only person of color in it? It doesn't matter. Back then it didn't matter. But so I got a call and they asked me to come and audition. I remember distinctly I had never auditioned before, never done theater before. I remember singing Happy Birthday. They're like, "Oh, just sing Happy Birthday. Sing Happy Birthday." Well, they cast me in the show. They say that bug bites you. That bug bit me hard. I was like, okay. So I did their entire summer stock that year, which was, ironically, it was Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Singing in the Rain, 42nd Street, and West Side Story. That's what I did. So from there, and then the choreographer from West Side Story, the choreographer from the Joseph production, working for Sesame Street Live. And Sesame Street Live, so he was basically a choreographer, performance director, for lack of a better word, it's like a stage manager. Mm-hmm. And they needed a short person who could tumble to be friends with Grover. So that happened, and I was 19. So my first job was at 18.
Would that be at Sesame Place in Philly?
No, it was the national tour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it was the national tour. So he was like, oh, he cast me basically from what he knew from before because I was the right height and all that stuff. So I went there and I got my equity card, which is the union card. And I was like, I was only 19. I had only done 4 shows. So I was like, you don't get your card. It'll screw up your career. And I was like, oh, well, whatever. They said I had to take it to do the gig. And I was like, so I did that for a year and a half. One of the hardest jobs I ever did. One of the most fun jobs I've ever did in my life. I mean, there's stories I could tell about that for 4 hours, so I won't go off a tangent. But so I was friends with. I'm allowed to say I played Grover. I'm so used to
it's fine.
DC mentality, But so I played Grover for a year and a half, and then Arlene Phillips. They were auditioning for Starlight Express on Broadway. I auditioned, but I guess before I auditioned, somebody had gotten hurt in the audition process, so they started making the audition process on your feet, not on your skates. I'm a very good skater. I always have been. That's what I did in my youth. So obviously I did not book because it was like dancing on feet, which I had only done really 3 times at that point. So I did not get cast in Starlight Express, the Broadway. But later, when the tour was casting, they had another audition, so I went to that. I got all the way to the end, to the point where I got on skates. Then Arlene Phillips, who was the choreographer of the show at the time, realized that there was really very little I couldn't do on skates. And she's one of those she's like, oh, if you have a special skill, I'll put it in. My husband and I have a running joke. Have you ever seen the movie Annie?
No.
The one from 1980, whatever. It's the one way back in the day. Anyway, there's a one where Arlene Phillips choreographed that movie. And there's a scene where there's a little girl in Hard Knocks Life spinning on a ceiling fan. Oh, that's not the thing. Arlene Phillips is like, oh, can anyone spin on a ceiling fan? And she'll put it in the show. So anyway, I got cast in the National Tour of Stars.
Yeah, as people spin on ceiling fans all the time. It's a thing.
No sense, but she's not the kind of person that goes, that's weird. She's like, I'll find a place to put it in. Right. So that's what happened with me. She found I could tumble on skates and stuff like that. So I got the National Tour of Starlight Express in rehearsals. And then I got fired. I got fired because I was hired as a swing, which I didn't know what that was. And for anybody who's listening, a swing is the understudy to the ensemble in a musical. Right. There's understudies, which are for the principals, and then there's the swings who are understudies for the ensemble.
Yeah, basically like you're sort of a utility player. You can go in and fill any role. Yeah.
And I was cast to cover 9 roles. Remember, this is me. I'm not really a dancer, so my brain doesn't work that way. So I clearly failed. I was not good at it. I was miscast because I didn't know what I was doing. So I got fired. But then Arlene Phillips pulled me aside. She's like, you know what? We're doing this show in Japan. I think you'll be fine with one role. And so she cast me as Rocky III in Japan Starlight Express, which was like this mega arena production that played to 10,000 people a day per show. So I went and did that. Of course, that went very, very well. And that put me on her map. And then she brought me back to the national tour. I got hired when somebody left. And I went back to the same show I was fired from, but in one role. And it was like kind of redemption, things like that. So I did that. Then from that Starlight Express, so I went from the tour, getting fired, Japan, finished that, brought back to the tour, and then went right to the German production of Starlight Express because it really is a very specific show that's very specifically me. So I did that. And when I came back, oh wait, did I skip something? Oh, I did skip something. Oh my God, I'm an idiot. Okay, so yeah, I did the national tour, so Germany, came back. When I left Germany, I came back to New York. And I auditioned for the Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat with Michael Damian, the revival that was going to happen on Broadway. And Vinnie Liff, who was Johnson Liff casting at the time, I auditioned for, like I said, I'm auditioning for Joseph. And he's like, hey, Jim, do you still tumble? I was like, yeah, of course. And he's like, okay, I'm thinking of you for a project. That's all he said. And, that's the end of my audition. I was like, okay, left. I get a call the next day. They're like, hey, we're thinking of you for a production of Miss Saigon. And I was like, oh, okay, thinking, the tour. He's like, so can you go sing for Bob Billig, who was the musical director? And I was like, sure, I guess. And so I did that. And he's like, oh, you can sing. I guess they're used to tumblers not being able to sing. Right. So he's like, so you can sing. And so I got offered that day the Broadway production of Miss Saigon from an audition for something completely different.
No kidding.
And I was like, my brain was like, what is happening? I didn't even audition for this show. So I did that for a year. And then I left because then they asked me to do Germany Starlight Express. So that's when I went to Germany. Mm-hmm. Wait, I'm doing this out of order. My brain, I'm telling you, my ADD.
No, this is great though. I mean,
because I was
all over the place.
Yeah, I did. So no, I met my husband at Starlight Express in Germany in 1991. Who's my husband now. But so that's where I met him. And then so we did that. Then we came back. I went to then we got cast together because he was doing the contract before me in Germany, and mine took over after he left. Then we came back, we lived in New York, and then we both got cast in the Vegas production of Starlight Express. So I've done Starlight Express technically 5 times now. So we did that together. And then I got asked to go back into Miss Saigon. This time in a different role.
Is Miss Saigon, is that also Andrew Lloyd Weber? I'm trying to remember.
It is the same people that wrote Les Mis. I cannot say their names. It's Schoenberg and Alain Bublé.
Gotcha.
And John Smith. I cannot say it. I never could say it when I was in the show. So I did that. And then when I was doing it the second time, I was physically and kind of mentally burned out. I know that sounds ridiculous, people. If anyone in musical theater is listening to your podcast, they're probably going to throw something at whatever they're listening to. But I was just like, yeah, this isn't for me. And he wasn't necessarily loving New York because he's from Hawaii. He's just very laid back. We're used to nice people. And New York is like New Jersey times 10. Everybody's confrontational and all that stuff. So he just was never happy. And so I was offered Disney. I was offered a job, the Spirit of Pocahontas at Walt Disney World.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay, I'll leave. And so I was like, I gave my resignation, left. I was literally in a Broadway show, left to go work at a theme park. But it was a beautiful show. It was one of the best things Disney's ever done, even to this date, in my opinion. So did that. We moved down here. Then our careers flip-flopped. So he was one of 1,000 all-American white guys that have no special skills in musical theater in New York. So, of course, he wasn't booking anything. He came down to Disney. He was the commodity. So he was booking left and right. And I was just doing the show I was doing. Then I switched from the Spirit of Pocahontas going into Tarzan Rocks, which was a stunt show. So I used my tumbling and aerialist skills.
Which park was that at? Would that be at Hollywood?
Animal Kingdom.
Animal Kingdom, okay.
It replaced the Jungle Book show. So I did the Spirit Pocahontas, and then they did the Jungle Book show at Animal Kingdom, and then that left, and Tarzan Rocks took over, and then Finding Nemo took over in the same theater. So it's all at the same. So yeah, I'm working at Disney. Obviously, he was getting left to right. He was doing everything on property, and I was like, once Pocahontas closed, this is going to sound. How can I make this not sound racial? But so basically, we were an entire brown cast of equity performers, and at the time in 1996, there was no positions on Disney property for us.
Right. So just not as many characters.
Exactly. There were no. Everything was branded, licensed. What's that called when you have like branded, like a branded character. So like Gaston and all this stuff. And that was before.
If you're doing a face character, I think is what they call it, right?
Exactly. Face characters or something, brand integrity. So I was like, oh my gosh. So then that's when I auditioned and got the national tour of Joseph from Orlando. That's the one where Tara's like, you didn't have to fly up here. We were going to cast you. Then from there, I did the Annie Get Your Gun tour, and I had a Dreamgirls tour, which I quit because it was, again, I was cast as a swing. This time I thought I could do it. I was wrong. Could not do it. But this time, instead of getting fired, I was like, you know what? I can't do this. And everybody still thinks I'm crazy. I'm like, trust me, I made the right decision. Because halfway through that tour, they fired the director choreographer and brought in a new director choreographer. So they were performing old choreography while learning new choreography. For someone who doesn't learn choreography very well, that's literally a nightmare. So I would have imploded. So I made the right call. So from there, and then I came back to Orlando, and I was in the Beetlejuice Graveyard Review, which is at Universal. Yes,
I remember seeing that show.
That's my rock. That's the only time I've ever seen rock.
Okay. I love that show when I was a kid.
I did too. I did two versions of it. It was so much fun. So I did that, and then till that clip. Well, no, then I left. That's when I went on tour with Annie Get Your Gun.
I heard that like Joey Fatone or one of the NSYNC guys had done that before.
Two of them. Okay, so you got time for this story?
I didn't know if you ran into those guys back in the day or what.
Oh, more than ran into them. So I was offered the show.
Dude, by the way, my wife is going to love this this podcast because she's a huge musical theater nut and loved NSYNC back in the day. So she's all into it. Go ahead.
Okay, so I get hired as the Wolfman. If anybody Googles my name on YouTube, you can see a little clip of the song I did. It was "Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again" by Sly and the Family Stone. That was the song Wolfman sang in that version. So I did that, and you see me tumbling and all that. So I show up to a rehearsal. The one that teaches me the show is Joey Fatone. Joey Fatone was the contracted Wolfman at the time. And the way they did stuff at Universal at the time is the people who knew the shows taught, because it was easier for the person who does that track to teach that track to somebody instead of somebody trying to teach them all. So he taught me the show. And at one point, and J.C. Chazé was learning Dracula. So J.C. Chazé technically learned the show, but this is when it gets fun. So we were in it for a little bit. And then at one point, it was around Christmas time, and Joey Fatone was my secret. He had me as a Secret Santa. He gave me all of the NSYNC marketing material. Like, it was stuff that was never released. It was stuff to give to clubs to promote them.
So he was already in the band at that point. They were just trying to get it going.
Exactly. And so he gave me all this stuff. I was like, oh, that's nice. Thought nothing of it. And at one point, there was a really good friend of mine who was also in the show, played the Phantom. So Joey and JC announced, they're like, oh, we're going to Germany. We're going to do our demo. And I don't want to say bitchy, but like the cynical, jaded people that my friend and I were like, okay, good luck with that. We'll see. And we were like, we'll see.
Right.
We'll see. That was the last time I ever saw Joey Fatone because he came back so famous I couldn't get anywhere near him. Right. So he went from being my Secret Santa. I have videos somewhere. I cannot find it. Oh my God, I want to find it so bad. There's a video of me sitting on his lap pretending to be his boyfriend. I'm like, if I had that video when they were at the peak of their thing, and also if I had kept the promotional stuff, which was not available for sale, people were paying ridiculous amounts of money for merch and stuff. I was like, it was in a box somewhere, and I'm pretty sure that box got thrown out. So that was my NSYNC connection to Joey Fatone. I mean, he would probably be nice to me. JC probably wouldn't remember me because we were learning the show at the same time, and our lives didn't path didn't cross before that or after. But Joey and I performed together. Like we literally.
I think he lives in the Orlando area or something. I mean,
Joey does?
I had heard something like that.
Absolutely, he does.
He's at the parks all the time.
Yeah, he went to Dr. Phillips High School, and so he has his family's here. He's over here, and I have really close friends that are like super close to him, like they're buddies. Like I think he would know who I was and go, "Oh, I remember you," but I would never be like, "I'm friends with Joey Fatone." That's not.
No, I got you.
JC Chazé probably wouldn't even remember to say, but he was fun story about that. So the show was 18 minutes. It was an 18-minute long show. JC was having so much trouble learning the choreography, and I'm not a dancer, but I was learning it. And I was like, then I went and saw NSYNC in concert. It was 2 hours of constant dance. I was like, how can you not learn an 18-minute show? Yeah. Because it wasn't what he wanted to do, is what I think. It wasn't the kind of dancing he likes. But I was like, he was not only dancing, he was really good at it. I was like, well, dancing clearly is something you can do. You just either didn't want to or whatever. But that was my throwback to that. So that's my NSYNC story. So getting back to how I ended up, so how my career is backwards. So now I did Grinchmas last year, and then 2 years before that at Universal. That was like my only performing thing. Because when Nemo closed, when the pandemic stopped, that's when everything stopped. So the first thing I did, and I've been like hosting a lot of stuff lately. Like I'm a Raptor expert at the Raptor Encounter now.
Oh, wow.
It's just speaking. There's no singing or anything like that. It's
just emceeing, regular.
It's like hosting. It's sort of acting, but not acting because you're.
Yeah.
It's a great gig. I love it. It's so much fun. But it's so funny. And now I tell people, I said, I'm the only one that can go from non-equity summer stock to a national tour to Broadway to national tour, theme park. Oh, I did cruise ships. I did 5 cruise ships.
Okay.
During the time that I was here in Orlando.
That's cool.
So I did cruise ships. Now I'm at theme parks, and now I can barely get cast at the theme park. So I'm like, most people do the other way around. They start at theme parks, go up to regional theater, then do ships, then do tours, then do no, mine was.
But you're still doing it though, and obviously with all that experience, stuff has a way of coming around. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun. I'm very, very lucky, and like I said, it gave me a living. And what a lot of people don't understand is like people are like, "Why would you leave? You're stupid. Why would you leave Broadway?" I was like, I have always said this, and I'm glad I took my own advice. If you're not happy doing something, it doesn't matter how prestigious it is.
Yeah.
If you're not happy, either you need to change it or leave. And I was like, so I did change it, and I tell people where else I can't think of anywhere else other than like Disney, where it is an equity, it's a union gig. Where you get pension, all that stuff, and you get full health insurance. In our business, health insurance is a luxury. Most time you have to work 10 weeks out of a certain amount of time just to even be eligible for it. So not only do we have health insurance, we have better health insurance than Equity provides. And everybody's like, and my quality of life, like I have a 3-bedroom house, a nice backyard. I had a pool, we got rid of the pool, but for $200 less a month than we paid for our rent in New York City.
I believe it.
So but my quality of life is different. It's harder because you make less, but there's a lot more opportunities down here. It's like in New York, either you're working in a Broadway show, or you're a server. Here, I could work at Universal, Disney. At one point, I was working at all 3 parks at the same time. I was at SeaWorld, Universal, and Disney all at the same time. I was like, I had 3 IDs. I was like, what is happening? So anyway, that's my Reader's Digest. It wasn't so Reader's Digest. I told you I go off on tangents.
This is great.
You were warned, sir.
Yes.
Were warned. You give me a
I knew the risks and I accepted them.
You should stress before you talk to me because who knows where this marathon's going to go. But now I'm back to working. I'm about to go out of town. I'm going to be working for the Gaylord Christmas show in Washington, D.C.
Oh, the Gaylord Palms, for those who don't know, that's a huge resort down here in Orlando. It's pretty close to my house, actually. But, they have a large they've got an ice rink in there. They've got stages and all. It's also a big convention center as well. So they host a lot of events in there. And I imagine they do productions like
they do a great Christmas show. And the thing is, the things that make the Gaylord resorts different or unique, they're completely encased. They have a glass ceiling, which means rain doesn't. I mean, the outside it does affect, but they can do shows all the time. And they have a giant, what's that called, atrium. and that's where they do their shows. And
which is great in this Florida weather, during the summer. Like, yeah, you want to be indoors. Trust me.
Exactly. Have you been to ICE yet? ICE is their big ice sculpture presentation they have in there.
I don't think so. I think me and my wife went there a couple years ago, like when they had all the Christmas stuff up. We'd walk around and do that, but I don't think we've been to the ice sculpture show yet.
Yeah, if you do, your daughters are how old?
They're 5 and 3.
Oh, they would enjoy it.
Oh yeah.
It's I always say it's expensive, but it's really not that compared to everything else in town. But it's especially if people from Florida, and you said you're from Delaware.
I'm from Pennsylvania originally, like outside of Philly. Like I said, when I was a kid, I went to school, in Wilmington, which is like right there.
Yeah.
But I've been down here in Florida since I was 15.
Okay, so a long time. Well, I was going to say, you will realize how thin your blood has gotten because I went to ICE, and I'm from New Jersey, and I'm like, oh, I can deal with cold. I had like that cold headache because, the temperature is 31 degrees. So the ice and stuff. And I walked in, I was like halfway through the exhibit. I was like, I am not a fan of this cold. It's not okay. And I was like, I'm from New Jersey. I'll be fine. I used to drive in snow. Blah, blah. And I was like, not a fan at all. But yeah, so
I'm used to it after a while. Yeah.
Exactly.
You do.
Exactly, you do. But yeah, so that's the next thing I have on the pipeline. And other than working Universal, I'm doing Halloween Horror Nights as well.
Awesome.
You will never recognize me, so don't go looking for me.
Okay. I've actually never been to Halloween Horror Nights before. For as long as I've been down here, I guess just because I'm not like a haunted house guy, I don't really enjoy that. But a buddy of mine, my buddy Al, has a YouTube show. Look up Your Pal Al on YouTube, by the way. So we might do something for his YouTube show where we go to Halloween Horror Nights. So,
well, if you do the house Legends Collide, which is you would appreciate this. So I got cast as one of the performers in the Legends Collide house, which is Dracula versus the Mummy versus Wolfman. The castmates in my house, the next oldest one to me is in his 30s. I'm 54. I looked at somebody and I said, if anybody was born after 1995 here, and which was most of them, I was playing the Wolfman before you were born, is what I told them.
Nice. Yeah.
And here I am. But I say that now, who knows how my body's going to handle this, because I've never done Halloween Horror Nights before. And like you, I don't really go as a guest because I tried to do it twice. And both times I got into almost a physical altercation with drunk people who don't handle the liquor very well.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not worth it for me, So, but now I'm going to be on the other side of it. So who knows how that's going to go.
Right.
But, yeah. So that's what's going on with me. But yeah.
That's awesome.
Now, so your band.
Yes.
Is it, because you went through like a whole list of all the bands you were in. Now the one you are in is.
Yeah, I'm in a band called Vertebraker.
Vertebraker. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's more.
Yeah, we're a hard rock band.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
All original stuff. And, but in addition to that, I also, I play bass in a Linkin Park tribute band as well, okay. New Divide. And, just a few other, little things like that. So it's, it's, I think when I was 13, like I really started to like getting into music, and just, there was no turning back for me after that.
I get it. I went to my high school reunion, my 30th high school reunion, like 4 years ago. And there was a guy who, granted, I grew up in the 80s. So that was with the Izod popped collars underneath a polo shirt. It was like preppy central. And I went to, upper middle class suburban high school. So everybody had money, it was all that. There was this guy who was the most clean cut, preppy guy I can remember. And he is now, just like you, a singer in a rock band, and he's tatted everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would have never recognized you in a million years, because you were like the most cookie cutter, clean cut, nice guy. He's probably still a nice guy, but it's like, he just looked like, the kind you bring home to mom. And then
that's always been me anyway. So.
Well, exactly what I'm saying. And he was tatted up. He had gauged ears. And I'm like, wow, you
went for it.
You sure did. Your life is very different than I would have projected for that kid in 1987. Yeah. But yeah. So I'm talking too much. So ask questions. I don't know.
No, that's awesome. But But to the point, where I've been doing the band thing for a while. I've met so many different people from all walks of life, and that's kind of what this podcast is, sort of a reflection of that. And I think people are probably going to hear like your story and some of the backgrounds you've been in and be like, wow, I didn't know Jack was involved with that when he was a kid. So
Yeah.
I think it'll be a cool thing. I think people are going to dig it.
It's too bad this is a podcast and not a YouTube video, because I would love for you to throw up some photos, because I'm sure you have photos, because we always took a cast photo with the kids.
Probably. I'd have to like either ask my parents or my aunt who held on to a bunch of that stuff. And there was one going around from like when I was in a production of Tom Sawyer when I was like 11 or 12.
Okay.
So.
Oh gosh, I'll have to look through my box of photos, because I have like boxes of from the tour and stuff, but I never know where they're from. Like I would have to remember what you look like. I was just another one of the many kids. Even if you saw a picture, you probably wouldn't have been like, oh, that's Jack. Like, no, but it's fine. Let me ask you, do you remember your handlers? Because I call her the child whisperer. Because obviously every city had different choirs, and they had different choir masters, and different work ethics and stuff. But she always, by the time we came in, because you guys rehearsed for 2 weeks before we got there, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And then
we would sometimes go to the venue and practice there.
Yeah. And I was like, so I would get there and I was like, you don't have that. There's never that one, I don't want to say bad child, but the one that, either isn't doing what he's supposed to do or is trying to get attention. I never saw that. I mean, granted, I was in front of you most of the time, but.
Yeah, no, there really wasn't much of that as far as I remember. I don't remember who our handlers were. Like we had, there were two different guys that we worked with.
Oh, okay, because it was two girls when I came on the tour.
Right. Well, there were two guys who I guess they were like they would just like play piano or go through the songs with us and whatnot.
Oh, got it.
As far as like placement and choreography stuff, I don't really remember who some of them were, but like we'd also have like our choir teacher and like maybe a few moms who would volunteer and
I remember like those. I remember the moms. Well, what I was going to say, do you remember the one handler? She had long dark hair. I can't remember her name. I'm so embarrassed that I can't remember her name. But it's where I got the whole, especially 12-year-olds, you get laughing and stuff. She would say, if you can hear me, clap once. And then you'd clap. And if you can hear me, clap twice. And they would clap. And by the third clap, everybody had gotten quiet. I was like, what a great way of getting kids' attention. Do you remember that happening?
Barely.
Oh my God. It was.
I think so. I remember there would be one thing that they would do where it's like we would line up if it was like before a show and they would have us go through all like the colors of the Dreamcoat, be like,
yes,
okay, red, yellow, and just it was one of those things that drove me nuts back then. I was like, oh God, why are we doing this? But like.
But you still know them? I'm telling you, I did the show in 1987 the first time.
Yeah.
And those colors were so hard to remember. I'll have complete senility.
I remember like mauve was in there somehow.
I'm like to it to this day. I'll always be
what the hell is mauve?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's like ochre. That's like picture.
Yes.
There are certain colors. I'm like, okay, they're crazy. But it's one of those things where I see you might be the exception. I was like, once you have learned those colors, you will never forget them because they're so ridiculous and there's so many of them. Because you guys at one point only sing the colors.
Right. Yeah. There would be all these little like things that we do. There were several things that I think this thing that stuck out to me most about that show was like the big chariot that Joseph would ride on. I thought like, oh, that's amazing. It was this big, like, winged eagle type of thing. It was
exactly. It's actually, if you look up pictures of the tour, it's what they always show Donny Osmond or Sam Harris in because it's the end, and they were in the goal.
It was Brian Lane Green was actually the lead.
You are right. You are right. So Brian Lane Green, because he replaced Sam Harris also in The Life on Broadway. So he was like a career Sam Harris replacement.
Right. I guess I don't know. Who knows what Brian Lane Green is up to now? I don't know what he's doing. But I remember he had a CD. He had an album of like just old like standards that he would sing, and
I have
my mom bought a copy of that as well. So
yeah, I have it as well. I have that, and it's so funny because people mix up Brian Lane Green with Brian Austin Green, who was from 90210.
Big difference.
I'm like, oh, I did the show with Brian Lane Green, and they're like, oh, from 90210. I was like, nope, that's Brian Austin Green. Very different. Right.
That would have been a different show.
Yeah, very different show. But yeah, it's, oh my gosh. I always tell people, I was like, the reason Broadway is so expensive is like that show, Joseph, did not have to be as expensive as it was. Like, do you remember the scenes when Joseph's talking about the cows and the staffs and the corn and all that stuff?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, so it's in the Bible too, you know, about how his dream, he saw that there were skinny cows and basically there was going to be a famine.
Yes.
So the cow heads we wore were see-through, which means they were molded, basically sunglasses is what they were.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire thing, and there was these giant elaborate gold heads that you could see through. I'm like, you didn't have to you could have made them so much cheaper, but whatever. Real human hair wigs I wore for Potiphar. I remember that. I was like, that's really expensive. Nobody in the audience would know if these were synthetic, but nope, they had to be real human hair.
Yeah, I remember there was like one sequence where it was like 70s disco all of a sudden.
Yes, I was the one that wore the strappy. I don't know if you remember my outfit. It was literally like, basically, it was like furniture strapping jumpsuit is what it was. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Well, yeah, and the funny thing is, I remember some of like one of the teachers, one of the handlers, kind of like talking to like me and the other boys. They're like, it's like, guys, I know that, you know, when some of the girls come out, some of the outfits are a little more revealing, and some of like the slave girls, it like from a distance it looks like they're practically naked, like from a distance there, and I think like the first night, like a lot of us were visibly like, oh, whoa, what's going on here?
Exactly, until you saw up close.
Yeah, until we went up close. So like I remember they had like, okay, guys, you can't react like that. I saw some jaws drop in there.
It's hilarious. I remember we got not.
And I'm thinking like, we're 12. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, you're 12-year-old boys, and there's dancer bodies who look like they're naked. The same thing would have happened.
It was funny. I remember my uncle came to see one of the shows. He's like, it's like, Jack, any of those girls single? Like, what's going on?
But the funny thing is, I remember there was one city where some moms protested because they thought the girls were wearing just the bikinis. I'm like, Go up close. They are wearing opaque skin-colored unitards. Yeah. With stuff on it. So they're completely covered. There's no way anything but they didn't.
A little spicy for a kid's musical.
Yeah, a little spicy. It's implied spice. Implied spice.
Yes.
Well, I mean, for a 12-year-old heterosexual boy in musical theater, you're welcome.
Yeah, well, which is true, and it's funny. I look back now and I think like, man, like I probably should have stayed in the musical theater stuff a little bit more, if nothing else, just for like the girls who were involved in that.
Absolutely, you're what they call a unicorn. Well, nowadays that's not true. I have to say, because the world is changing mostly for the better. A straight guy can do musical theater and not get. I mean, I'm sure you'll get jokes, but it won't be like bullied. Right. But then,
and that was one of the things like why I kind of stopped doing it. Because I was like really into rock and roll and really wanted to. I just felt like that was a way for me to express myself a little bit more and just be a little more authentic to who I was.
Yeah.
And as opposed to like some of the roles that I was getting, like I wasn't really comfortable playing certain types of roles, and I thought like I'd rather just be myself and rather make my own music. And but it's funny. I look back now. It's like, man, I could have been cleaning up back then if I'd stuck with it.
You absolutely would have. I mean, but it worked out fine. You got your wife, you got your daughters. Everything's good.
Everything's good. And honestly, I've, like you said, I've never been the type of person to do something that I'm not into just to try and please other people. Like if it's something I'm genuinely into, then I'll do it. If not, like I'm not going to fake it. And that was the thing with like theater stuff. After a while, people would be like, Jack, are you sure you really want to do this? And I'm like, you know what? No, I don't think I do.
Well, now, what is your take on the direction musical theater, especially Broadway, is going with all the rock and pop influences they're having? Like, for example, it's funny that we're having this conversation because when we're done with this, I have to do an online submission it's called & Juliet. Have you heard about it? Mm-mm. It's Romeo and Juliet, but it's a musical with pop songs. It's all pop and rock songs.
Yeah, like a jukebox musical is what they're
Well, yeah, it's kind of like how Six, the musical, is, but it's that's more musical theater. But yeah, so this is like literally Katy Perry's songs and stuff like that. And it's so rocked out. Like We Will Rock You is one of them.
Yeah, the Queen musical.
Yeah, Head Over Heels with the ones with the Go-Go's and all that stuff. So it's interesting because it's like the point I was saying is like, so I have to do this submission and it's not what I do. I don't do rock very well.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm going to try to fake it the best. So if any casting directors listening to this podcast, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, I can do rock.
Nice.
Well,
nice.
The funny thing is I only can do pop and rock as much as I can. It's because of cruise ships. Because cruise ships, they make you do all kinds of stuff. I remember me singing Pinball Wizard.
Nice.
It's so high. I was like, and it wasn't like you can't use theater technique to protect you. You have to rock it out. It's the only way it works.
And they're not going to change the key on you.
No, they cannot.
No,
you can't.
It's all the tracks.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh Lord, that. And then one thing I had to sing Sir Duke and what's the other one? Stevie Wonder, famous song. Superstition. So Superstition and Sir Duke together in his key. I'm like, what percentage of people on the planet can sing Stevie Wonder in his original key?
Not easy.
And I had to come in and I had to do it. And I was like, well, there was no, I can't do it. I just had to make it work. And that's how I learned to sing a little bit more pop, more rock, which then influenced my musical theater side. So it's like, man, it's a slippery slope.
I mean, there's definitely some crossover there. I mean, I look at, I think like there's a Bat Out of Hell musical, like does the music of Meatloaf and Jim Steinman. So like stuff like that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But you asking what I think of it? I mean, I think it's pretty cool. Like a buddy of mine was the guitarist in a local production of Rock of Ages.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's great. Like it was wild. Like a few years ago when I was hearing the soundtrack for the movie version of Rock of Ages. Mm-hmm. And it just blew my mind. I was like, wow, I can't believe like these songs are in this like mainstream movie with some of these like mainstream cats, who are singing it. So like, I mean, I think it's great, especially if you have that bit of crossover. It's definitely a lot easier for someone like me to sink my teeth into. But I mean, yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I wasn't trying to like bag on musical theater earlier. Like I'll go to shows, that my wife will take me to. Like right now, like everyone in my house is listening to Wicked constantly. So.
Well, wait till they get Ariana Grande in it.
Yeah, so there's really no escaping from
at all. But like some of them are so
they're big Finding Nemo musical fans, by the way. So
there you go. Well, if you're a
they might have gone to see you at some point. They might have been in the crowd while you were there. I don't know.
Maybe. Well, if you ever go to see it again, let me know and I can get you a meet and greet with people because my husband still does it.
Nice, very cool.
Yeah. So it's oh my god, it's so much fun. I was going to talk about like how like some of the new rock musicals are so niche, like American Idiot. I'm like, is it? Wait, who?
Green Day.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm like, who's going to see it other than Green Day fans? And now they have the Alanis Morissette one, Jagged Little Pill.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I heard some of them. Like, didn't American Idiot win like a Tony or something?
Exactly. And I'm like,
so there you go.
So there you go. But then, Strange Loop one, and that's so specific. I'm like, technically the show is for me, and I don't want to listen to it that often because I'm like, it's a lot. It's very a lot, but it's good. It's just I was surprised that it's doing as well as it's doing. But anyway, yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. So I don't know if you have any social media you want people to find you at, or any info about some of the shows you're doing right now, or if you got anything to plug, go for it.
I'm not a big plugger, and the thing is, I do have social media. It's basically everything's my name, but the funny thing is, I meant to tell this earlier. One of the things that makes me different, considering what I do for a living, I have no desire to be famous. I don't want anybody to know who. It makes me uncomfortable. Like when I did that Starlight Express in Japan, it was billed as a rock musical, and it was hugely popular, and people knew who I was. They knew what I did, all that, and I didn't know who they were, and I did not like that at all.
Okay.
Yeah, it made me so uncomfortable. So like I was going to do a YouTube channel, but then I was like, I don't want it to be about me. I want to try to help people because I made a lot of mistakes in my career, and things that I wish I had known when I was younger. But I'm like, I have to put myself on camera to do that, and then it becomes about me, and I don't want it. I don't want that. Yeah,
no, I get it. I mean, it's certainly. There's something to be said for going and performing and enjoying the craft, enjoying performing, but not all the other stuff that comes along with it. Like
exactly.
No, I don't blame you.
Performing brings me joy. Being the notoriety does not. On the flip side of that, so the other career, I didn't mention this. The other thing I do, the reason I don't have to work as much as most people do, is I'm a photographer. I'm a entertainment photographer, so I do headshot photography and theater photography, and like male physique and stuff like that. So that's my artistic outlet when I'm not performing. And that's about other people. That has nothing to do with me. I like to show people the inner beauty of themselves. Mm-hmm. So that's my outlet. So like when it comes to plugging things, like I didn't even tell people that I was booking these things, because I'm like, when people on Facebook and say, oh, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm like, if other people are anything like me, they're like, oh, I auditioned for that. I didn't get it. I guess I'm not very talented. I do that. Mm. So that's why I don't mention anything, because it's not, I know that people are like, hey, I'm so excited, I'm very privileged, but I'm like, that's not how everyone takes it.
You don't want people to think you're bragging about it.
Bragging or just making somebody feel bad they did not. Somebody else may have auditioned for the gig I'm doing and they didn't get it. And then, if they're anything like me, they go, what did I do wrong? So I'm too old, I'm too fat, blah, blah. It's insecurity.
Yeah, no, I got you.
But that, and I was telling somebody when you see these celebrities being interviewed and they're like, I don't watch my own work, and I don't want anybody to know me, and they're like, oh, that's BS. I was like, you wouldn't be. I was like, I understand that 100%. I don't like seeing myself. Like when I have to do my online submissions, I do it and I send it immediately. I don't watch it because then I'll micro critique it.
I'm the same way.
I know, and absolutely. I'm like, so I'm one of those people who go, I get it. Just if you enjoyed what I did, great, move on. If not, that's okay too. But I'm glad you're doing so well. You know,
dude.
The only thing you did that I didn't do is have kids, which
that's cool.
Way past that for me.
Oh, it's all good.
I don't be a 70-year-old at my kid's high school, so.
I hear you. Very cool, Jim. This has been awesome, man. It's so great to reconnect with you and find out everything you're doing. And I think you got a really cool story, and I think people are going to like it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks once again to James Berkley for just being an amazing guest. What a great guy. Super talented. It was really awesome to reconnect with him after all this time and just to share sort of that part of my life with all of you who listen regularly. So yeah, a shout out to James Berkley. He's still out there here in Orlando. He's still performing. It's pretty cool to hear just all the various experiences that he's had in show business and the fact that he's still making it happen after all this time. So thanks again, James, for showing up and doing this. As far as upcoming events, I don't have really anything booked with Vertebraker right now, but New Divide, my Linkin Park tribute band, has been very busy. This Friday, September 9th, we will be playing at the Hard Rock Hotel in Daytona Beach. We'll be there along with The Rock Show, which is a tribute band. It's a Blink-182 tribute band, The Rock Show. So definitely don't miss that. And then Saturday, October 8th, we will be going to Red Star Live in Tampa, and we will be playing alongside my other band, which is the Butterfly Wings. It's myself and Gabe Vermund and our buddy Josh and our new guitarist, Ramsey Skyro. The Butterfly Wings is basically a 90s tribute band, so we'll be playing a lot of alt-rock songs from the 90s as well, and sort of pulling double duty because we'll be opening for New Divide. So that should be a lot of fun. Come check us out there if you're in the area. And then on Saturday, November 5th, New Divide will be playing at Gill Dog in Port Richey. So definitely don't miss that. And that is it for this episode of the Phoenix Report. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JackXConnor. Make sure you like me on Facebook at facebook.com/JackConnorMusic. Feel free to check out my band, starting with Vertebraker at facebook.com/VertebrakerBand. New Divide is at facebook.com/NewDivideBand. The Butterfly Wings is at facebook.com/90sButterflyWings. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, make sure you email me at jackconnorpodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet me with the hashtag Phoenix Report. If you're listening to this on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe and ding the notification bell. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or we are available on every single podcast platform available. Thanks. Shout out to Anchor on Spotify for making that happen for free. That's awesome. Make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment, go back and listen to the other episodes, leave a review if you can. 5 stars would be awesome, just saying. And thank you guys as always for tuning in. This has been the Phoenix Report. I'm Jack Connor. We'll see you later. Bye.